I know that this is a very broad question, but it'll just sort of get us started. What would you say to people who think, well, police aren't doing enough because this shooting happened? Because I know that there's a lot of stuff you do behind the scenes, so let's talk about what that is.
You know, I understand where that's coming from, but yet knowing what we do and how we do it and being involved in it as long as I have, it's a coordinated effort with a bunch of units that came together years ago. We have realized that we need to coordinate those efforts between our gun, our gang, our violent crime task force, our narcotics unit, our homicide unit, our ag battery unit, and work smarter, not harder, and more efficiently so that everybody knows where they're at and we're on the same page. So all of those resources have been used over the last couple of days.
Let's start with, let's just say, the Violent Crimes Task Force.
Yes.
Inside Violent Crimes Task Force. What do they do?
They give us that bridge between violent crimes and narcotics. So they also associate with the gang. So they're that bridge between the violent crime units and gun, gang, and narcotics. So they provide that insight from the detective point of view from violent crime or crimes against persons to these other specialized units to bring them into the fold when everybody, you know, police work is like, it's some of what you watch on TV, it's somewhat siloed. This breaks down those silos. You know, this gets everybody working together, not that we know what it does. It helps when we're all working. We all have the same goals. We all understand what each other unit does.
So do they track guns? Do they track people? Do they track crime?
They track all of that, and we all use the crime analysis unit, which has been, it's been a saving grace to us because there's so much data out there now. So we use them to help us work smarter, and they track everything you said. And then we talk among the units to see, because the people that are with the guns are the guys that are dealing the drugs, or the guys that are doing the violent crimes. So it makes sense, and that's what we've done. And Sheriff Rutherford was a big proponent of that, and that kind of came out of the OSS days. So we still have that. We're still doing that, and it works.
Let's talk about guns. How prevalent are they on the street? How easy is it to buy a gun?
I think it's really easy to buy a gun. I think there's many ways to buy a gun, and it's just a matter of how are you thinking about it. I mean, most people, when they think about guns being bought illegally, think about a hand-to-hand transaction between two guys in an alleyway or two guys in the dark corner somewhere, when it can be someone going to an individual that has advertised through the paper, or it can be in a gun store, or it can be in a gun show. That gun could still be bought illegally through what we would call a straw purchase. So a person that's legally able to buy a gun, buying it and giving it to someone that cannot. So we do see a lot of that, and therefore we have the gun squad. We trace back every gun we recover to find out where it came from, where it was bought, how it was obtained, the best we can. We work closely with ATF, the FBI, and the United States Attorney's Office to make sure all of that is taken care of. Also, the State Attorney's Office. So the best way to prosecute it, get them the most time, put those violent people away. And guns has been a good way to do that.
Sunday's mass shooting, gang-related?
It depends on your definition. Were there gang people there? Yes. Do we know the motivation behind it? Was the motivation behind the shooting gang-related? I do not know that at this time.
Aggravated battery.
Aggravated battery. Years ago, if you were shot at or you did not have a life-threatening injury, that investigation was followed up by patrol. So what we looked at there, it serves two purposes. If somebody shoots at you or you were shot and it's non-life-threatening, we have a unit now that would follow up that investigation, because in the sheriff's mind at the time, maybe it's because we did a good job of saving your life. Maybe it was because the other person was a bad shot. That's a murderer waiting to happen. So now we're investigating that more like we do a murder, and those detectives that go there are your future homicide detectives. So we're growing this agency because people are leaving. They're in the drop, they're getting out of here. These seasoned homicide detectives are going, and we want to be prepared for that. Therefore, the Ag Battery Unit, they've done a great job, and they fill in that gap that we weren't filling in. So we're doing that now. We're getting those people that may shoot you in the leg or shoot you in the arm, but they intended to kill you. So we're doing those investigations with a trained unit now.
You know, years ago, you didn't shoot pregnant women.
No.
you didn't shoot children. What is it? What's happening? Why?
You know, I don't know that we can put a finger on why. If we knew that answer, we'd solve it. And I think a lot of people, it's a community issue. The sheriff's talked about it many times, and we like to talk about it. This is all of our problem. I mean, you know, most of these gangs and these criminals are drug-driven, and if you're, I mean, everybody's been touched by the drug problem. So if your family members or your people you know that have these issues are down here buying these drugs, that's what keeps it going. It's not their community problem because they don't sell the drugs over and wherever you live at that you might think is a nice gated community, but there's people in that community that are buying drugs down here that are fueling this violence. That's what does it, and that's the message we'd like. It's all of our problems. You know, it belongs to everybody. It's a Jacksonville problem.
You know, you've been doing this a long time. Is it just a complete disregard for human life?
Well, is it worse than what it was? You know, the numbers aren't as worse as, but any time. I mean, we can't downplay that. If it's one, it's too many. You know, if it's your family member, it's too much. If it's anything, I don't, just because the numbers are better, the numbers aren't like they were. I was there in the beginning of the crack days when there was 200 murders. We don't have that now. You know, would that be awful? Yes, it would. But is what we have now awful? Yes, it is. Because the outcry of this community needs to be loud. These gang members, these drug dealers, they need to hear it. They need to hear it from everybody and know that we have the tools now because they taught us how to do it early on. We've got the tools to combat it, and that's what we're going to do. We've got every resource that we have ready to go out on the street, put the bad guys in jail, and we look for the community to help us.
Is it discouraging that here we are? I have to tell you, because I've been looking forward to on Sunday. Where is the outcry? Where are the people?
Yeah, they're there. They're there. I think the voice is you know, maybe we don't want to hear the voice. Maybe we're not looking in the right places. Do we get it? Yes, we do. We get great cooperation from the community. We rely on it. If it wasn't for them, we wouldn't have the crime solved that we do. We rely on that greatly. So, do we hear it? Yes. Would we like to hear more? Always. You know, the more support, the more we hear them get tired of it, the more calls we get, the more we solve it at the beginning before we have violence, the better off we are.
Chief Hackney was up there saying, look, we've interviewed 40 people. We need to hear from more people. Why are people so afraid to come forward oftentimes and tell?
Well, when you have a violent situation, you've had, you know, 12 people shot. I think anybody would be afraid. I've been a policeman almost 34 years, and it is a sobering experience when you hear about that. It's still, to this day, when I went out there yesterday, it still shocks me that you see this kind of violence in this community. So, are people scared? Yes, they are. Can they depend on us? I'm telling them they can. Call us, call Crime Stoppers. We will be there for you. So that's what we want. We're that gap between the community and solving these crimes, and we want them to call us. So.
I know you guys get beat up a lot. But is the reality, I mean, how do you prevent somebody from pulling out a gun and shooting 11 people? I mean, you can't be everywhere every time.
The community prevents that. We do that together. We do our piece, the churches do their piece, the community does their piece, the news media does their piece. We all work together. We all, instead of taking pot shots at each other, let's all work together. You know, we can make a difference in this community. And I think we've proven that when we started OSS, and that came, the numbers plummeted. Crime has gone down. But we've proved we can do it. We just need to get back on the same page. We need to stop, you know, picking on each other and get on that same page. Let's work together and get this done.
Is there something specific then that you guys are doing as a result? I know you mentioned that Brooklyn hasn't had a whole lot of crimes. Anything that you're doing differently now as a result of what happened there?
Certainly all the areas are getting attention. Brooklyn being one of them. I think you're certainly seeing the police out there now. You're seeing that presence. But you're also seeing from the people that we contacted at that party, us doing that follow-up piece. Now, to go into detail to what we're doing with that, I don't want to go there, but I can tell you that we are going into detail with all those people that we contacted that were at that party and on those social networks and what was going on, what is the motivation. Once we find that, we will get with y'all, we will give you that story, let's get that out to the community, and let's understand how something like that happens.
Is it cliche to say it's a war out there?
Sometimes. When you've got people that with 100 plus people in a park, a very small park, start taking shots at each other, I think that you could categorize that as a horrible, to get out there and cliche that. I think that's wrong. For that situation at that time, yes.
Well, last question. Do you remember any time through, I know you've worked in so many ways and everything, any story that, people at home who live in those gated communities, they want to think that everybody's just naturally good. But the reality is I have heard before in speaking to police officers, these people, they think they have short lifespans, they know they do, and they don't really care who they hurt. Do you have any story that you remember in interviewing somebody who did something bad or somebody on drugs or something, can kind of convey to us this whole theory of what little regard they have?
Well, these people are our people. So these are people from Jacksonville. They're part of our group. So we fuel that. I mean, us separating these people that are violent, they're not part of us. Well, they are. They come from our families. That's somebody's son. That may be somebody's father. I mean, in my opinion, I have a drug background, a narcotics background. I think, in my experience, it's a root. It's what drives the money. Because if it wasn't for the money, they wouldn't be out there doing it. But they're part of our community, and it's as a community we need to get rid of that. So we can do that. We've proved we can do that. The numbers have dropped drastically. We know we can. And I look to y'all to get that message out to the community instead of us talking about petty issues and fighting among each other. Let's get with each other and let's solve this problem.